Morgan Freeman has long been revered as one of Hollywood's most dignified voices, both literally and metaphorically. Known for his commanding presence, thoughtful commentary, and a career spanning over 5 decades, Freeman rarely finds himself entangled in the chaos of celebrity gossip or heated television exchanges. So when he agreed to appear on The View, it was expected to be a calm, introspective segment focusing on his upcoming documentary on social justice and systemic reform. However, what unfolded on set quickly turned into one of the most unexpected and fiery confrontations in the show's history. The tension began subtly, masked under polite exchanges between Freeman and Whoopi Goldberg herself, a longtime advocate and vocal presence on racial politics. But when the discussion turned to Freeman's past remarks on race and identity, the cordial tone cracked. The disagreement escalated fast, revealing deep ideological differences between two cultural giants. In an unprecedented move, producers stepped in, and Freeman, after an unapologetic final statement, was escorted off the set. The clip, as expected, went viral in a matter of hours, leaving the audience stunned and the internet ablaze. The segment began as expected warm reflections on Freeman's storied career, his passion for storytelling, and his latest role as narrator and producer of a new documentary on healing the American divide. The mood was light, with co-hosts nodding along as he shared stories from the making of the series. Whoopi praised his voice as the voice of God, drawing laughter and applause. But then Sunny Hostin gently asked about a controversial clip from years prior in which Freeman had stated that talking constantly about race only perpetuates racism. Whoopi picked up from there. "Morgan, you once said the best way to end racism is to stop talking about it. Do you still believe that?" she asked, tilting her head. Freeman didn't hesitate. "Absolutely," he said. "We're more than the color of our skin. If we keep defining each other by race, we never move beyond it." There was an audible murmur from the audience. Whoopi, visibly bristling, responded, "That sounds nice in theory, but in practice, ignoring race doesn't make racism disappear. It erases people's lived experiences." The cordial tone had officially left the building. Freeman didn't raise his voice, but his words were sharper now. "There's a difference between ignoring race and not letting it define you. Not saying don't acknowledge it time, saying stop making it the centerpiece of every conversation." Whoopi leaned forward. "But Morgan, for a lot of people, it is the centerpiece. When you walk into a room and you're profiled, when you're denied opportunities, when you're targeted, how do you just move beyond that?" Freeman calmly replied, "You don't move beyond it by clinging to it. You acknowledge it, you confront it, and then you rise. But if every conversation starts and ends with race, we're not growing, we're reliving trauma on a loop." Joy Behar interjected, trying to lighten the mood. But the two icons were now locked in a serious ideological tug-of-war. The atmosphere grew heavy. What started as a dialogue had turned into a clash of philosophies, one rooted in healing through recognition, the other through transcendence, and neither was backing down. Whoopi, not one to hold back, raised her voice slightly. "With respect, Morgan, that sounds a lot like respectability politics. The idea that we should just keep our heads down and work hard, and the world will fix itself. That hasn't worked for a lot of us." Freeman leaned back in his chair, looking directly at her. "I've never said keep your head down. I've said carry it high because you know your worth, not because the world validates it. Oh, the revolution isn't always on the streets or on the news. Sometimes it's in how you treat yourself and your neighbor, regardless of what label society puts on you," Whoopi responded quickly. "And sometimes it's on TV, where we have the power to call it out, not pretend it away." At this point, the energy in the studio was no longer manageable. Audience members were visibly shifting in their seats, unsure whether they were witnessing a debate or a full-on breakdown in respect. What made it more jarring was the mutual history and admiration between the two, but in that moment neither seemed willing to give an inch. The producers signaled to wrap the segment early. But Freeman, clearly aware of the shift, stood up. "I didn't come here to be told I'm erasing anyone's experience. I came here to talk about solutions," he said firmly. Whoopi stood up too, And sometimes the first step to solutions is facing the uncomfortable truth, she said. The audience clapped hesitantly, unsure which side to affirm. Freeman looked to the crowd, then back to Whoopi. Then let's make space for more than one truth, he replied. That would have been the perfect line to end on, but the silence that followed was pierced by Whoopi saying under her breath, "Some truths are more dangerous when they come with a smile." Freeman froze, then nodded slightly. "How you feel, then maybe this isn't the place for me." And just like that, he handed his mic to a crew member, adjusted his jacket, and calmly walked off the stage. No theatrics, no yelling, just a quiet but firm refusal to be reduced to a soundbite. It was a moment nobody in the studio or watching at home would soon forget. Asterisk, the internet erupted almost instantly. Clips of the exchange hit social media within the hour. Hashtag Morgan vs. Whoopi and hashtag View Meltdown began trending worldwide. News outlets scrambled to transcribe the conversation. Analysts weighed in, some defending Freeman's perspective as a necessary call for unity. Others siding with Whoopi's insistence on confronting systemic injustices head-on. But most were shocked that two of the most respected black voices in Hollywood had clashed so publicly. Think pieces flooded every major publication. The Atlantic praised Freeman's quiet resistance, while The Root questioned whether his message was tone-deaf in a world still bleeding from racial wounds. Viewers took sides, but the broader conversation turned to a more pressing question. Are black voices ever allowed to disagree in public without it becoming a spectacle? The media frenzy was impossible to ignore, and The View, once again, found itself at the center of a cultural thunderstorm. Asterisk ABC issued a cautious statement the next day. "We are committed to open dialogue on The View, even when conversations become uncomfortable. We thank Mr. Freeman for sharing his perspective." Whoopi, never one to shy away from addressing controversy, opened the next show with a brief monologue. "Yesterday was tough," she said. "Tough because sometimes, even among people we admire, we don't agree. But disagreement doesn't mean disrespect unless we make it so." She didn't mention Freeman by name, but her tone carried the weight of reflection. Meanwhile, Freeman released a short message through his representative. Mr. Freeman stands by his words and regrets that the conversation became more contentious than constructive. The air was still thick with tension, but both parties had chosen diplomacy over drama, at least for the public eye. Behind the scenes, sources claimed producers were scrambling to reassess how guests are prepped and whether hot-button topics should be flagged more transparently going forward. Asterisk, as days passed, opinions shifted. Many viewers, especially older audiences and longtime fans of Freeman, praised him for speaking his truth without losing his composure. He was the only adult in the room, read one viral tweet. Others, particularly younger activists, sided with Whoopi's assertiveness, arguing that Freeman's approach glossed over the lived trauma of marginalized communities. What made this moment so unique and explosive was not just the disagreement, but who was disagreeing. It wasn't a pundit and a politician, or a celebrity and a journalist. It was Morgan Freeman and Whoopi Goldberg, two titans whose words have shaped generations. For many, it felt like watching parents fight. But for others, it was a rare and necessary public reckoning. Even as media outlets tried to reduce it to TV drama, the public kept pulling the conversation deeper into history, identity, responsibility, and the complex paths to social healing. Asterisk Freeman returned to his documentary promotion weeks later, this time on more neutral ground: PBS, NPR, and international news outlets that focused on long-form conversation rather than viral bites. He emphasized unity, personal accountability, and the importance of elevating stories that inspire rather than divide. But he didn't shy away from referencing the incident. "We must be able to disagree and still move forward," he said in one interview. "If we can't do that on TV, how can we expect it in real life?" His words were measured, but pointed. Meanwhile, The View returned to business as usual. Producers reportedly added additional prep for future guests, particularly those discussing race or politics. One anonymous crew member stated, "Nobody wants another walk-off, especially from someone as respected as Morgan Freeman. But the ratings had soared, and whether anyone admitted it or not, controversy still paid the bills.